Absolutely.
Let's move to the other side of the ball, Jesse. Analyzing the defense. Now, this is a very different situation. Talk to us a little bit about what you saw from the defense, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. So, obviously, I think that overall the defense played well. I think that early on there was definitely some hiccups in the run game. You and I were texting throughout that portion of the game. And I think a lot of that is just by design. Even in 2019, there were some times where they would get gashed a bit in the run game. And most of that is scheme based. They have the big bodies in the middle to stop the run. But when you're running a wide nine, there's going to be holes all up and down that line. And you're relying on the linebackers to get off offensive lineman blocks and make plays. And that's not always going to work for you. And I think once they made the adjustment to squeeze everybody in a little bit more, bring them in tighter, that's when the run game stopped. And, out of the 80 or so rushing yards that the running backs had, I got to imagine 75 of those came in that first
Right.
quarter, right? Like it just seemed like every time you looked up, they were reeling off 8 to 12 yards easy. So, but when you take in the game as a whole, I think the defense did just fine. And then again, things fell apart a little bit once Ferret got injured, and so that's something that now we have to turn our sights to. I'm curious to see what happens going forward with the Eagles. I'm curious to see what happens with Ferret being done for the year. Shanahan said in the post-game presser that they have stayed in contact with Richard Sherman. That doesn't excite me, but they've got to look at bodies, and he's somebody that knows this defense, and he's a veteran. Either way, whether they're relying on rookies or whether they're relying on veterans like Norman and Sherman, it's going to be more of a cover 3, cover 4 defense again. And that doesn't excite me either, but it is what it is. And that's why Jason Verrett, even though he's not the best player, was the most important player on this defense. And I think that's going to prove out over the course of this season. So good luck to Jason. I hope that he heals up, but it's going to be tough for the 49ers to get over this one.
Yeah. Spy Nick Danger. So we missed Kinlaw big in this game. Defense needs to stop the run. I mean, yeah, Kinlaw obviously excels at the run stopping. But I agree with Jesse. It was more scheme based, but definitely if he was there, it would have been a big help. How do we match up against the Eagles? We'll definitely get into that later on. Heather, this is why I listen to you guys talk me off the ledge. Any idea how long Kinlaw will be out? 49ers are so secretive with their injuries. It's really hard to say. I mean, having Trey Sermon all of a sudden just be a healthy scratch, it was, out of nowhere. He played so well in the, preseason. It's remarkable why. But so I don't think anybody really knows other than, the coaching staff for the 49ers. As far as the defense for me, I think that the defense showed that they could be really, really good. But then for some reason, I hate it when there's this big lead. All of a sudden, they scheme up this soft, the soft zone, or they just stopped playing the defense the way that they played. That was making making Detroit struggle the whole time, right? Like they stopped playing aggressive. They just played the 4. They stopped blitzing. They stopped. The defensive line they were just using the 4. Basically the base defense or whatnot, or not even the base. I don't know what they were using as far as just the 4 defensive linemen, and then they just dropped everybody back.
Yeah.
And we always see that that's how teams come back, right? And I don't understand. I don't know if it's maybe just D'Amico Ryan's going into how everybody always this is just the standard of what you should do as a defensive coordinator when you have a big lead, is just drop everybody back and just give those 10-yard plays, 10-yard plays, 10-yard plays. I feel like if the 49ers just played defense in the last half of the fourth quarter the same way they played the first 3 quarters, they would have never come back, right? But once again, that didn't happen. I think a lot of people are looking at the secondary and being like that they're the issue. Verrett went down, so all of a sudden, we're going to be struggling in the secondary. And look, our secondary was never our strength. It's always going to be this defensive line, our linebacking core, the safeties. I think that the defensive line wasn't as effective at the end of the game, and that's really what changed the game. And I think it was once again because DeMeco Ryans stopped being DeMeco Ryans at the end of the game, and I don't know why. I was like looking at the game, being like, why are we dropping the linebackers back so much? Why are we stop doing everything that caused us to be so successful in this game? And I think that was the biggest key. But overall, I feel like the defense is going to be fine. It's time for these rookies to step up, Dante Johnson to step up. We've seen flashes, and they're going to get a good test next week because Reagor and Devontae Smith are no joke at receiver. Hurts is no joke at quarterback. They had a very good game, albeit with the very poor defense in Atlanta, but they still played really well. So it's going to be a big game, but I am not as off the bandwagon as some people are with this defense. I still think we have one of the best defensive lines. I still think we have one of the best linebacking cores, and Al-Aziz jumping up and playing lights out. Like maybe he was the best linebacker in the game this game. And I still think we have two of the best safeties back there. So if 3 phases of our defense are elite, we should still be okay. It's just about, it's the first game. Look, these guys didn't play together all preseason. Like starters are out. This is the first time everybody was together. Is there work to be done? Absolutely. But can I look at things and see how this defense is going to play and how well they can play together? Yeah, absolutely. This is a better defense than last year, right? And same thing like we talked about the offensive line. The offensive line is better than last year. This defense is better than last year. So I am still optimistic about how good this defense is. Shocking that I'm optimistic, right? But yeah, I think that we'll be fine. I think that there's definitely work to be done, but I don't think that our season is ruined by any stretch of the imagination either.
No, it's definitely not ruined, but you're right. I mean, that defensive line, Goff dropped back 60 times. They only sacked him 3 times out of 60 dropbacks, right? And obviously it was the usual suspects. Bosa got one, Ford got one, and then Kentavious Street got one. But Armstead did Armstead things. He had 1 tackle and 1 penalty. This guy's getting paid a lot of money to have 1 tackle and 1 roughing the passer, right? So, these guys are going to have to step up. And that secondary certainly was – the secondary was not the strength of the defense, but it was still a strength of the defense, right? And I hope that makes sense. And it's probably not going to be a strength of this defense anymore. So that means that defensive line has to be an absolute game changer and a game wrecker, especially if they are going to go cover 3 and cover 4 instead of cover 1 and blitz. So I'm curious to see what happens in this next week. Detroit also has a pretty good line. They have one of the better centers in the league. Penei Sewell, who knows what he ends up being, but for my money, he's going to be one of the best tackles in the game. So it's not like there was a bunch of bums in front of him, but at the same time, 60 dropbacks, 3 sacks, that's certainly not going to get it done going forward. So that defensive line is going to have to absolutely step it up big time against the Eagles. And as they start to face more of these mobile quarterbacks, they're going to have to wreck the game a lot more than they did today.
I liked how Ebukam played. I think he was disruptive. He almost got there was that
the pitch handoff.
Yeah, pitch reverse where he almost blew that up. If he realized what was going on, he would have just got the ball, but he went for the quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think he was pretty disruptive. I think, let me see right here. How great were Ford and Bosa today. I mean, breaths of fresh air. I think they obviously are going to get better. This is their first game back, but you can see that they were disruptive, especially Bosa. I think Bosa more than Ford had a pretty decent game. There was some, plays, like the fourth down play where Bosa got in the backfield. He obviously had a sack.
Yeah.
D Ford, obviously gonna build into. He got a sack as well, which was great. Can we count on Norman and Lenoir as a temporary fix on Verrett loss? Look, it's not a temporary fix. We don't need a temporary fix. Verrett is not coming back, so it's got to be a permanent thing for the rest of the season. I don't think that Norman, if we have Lenoir in there, I don't think Norman is actually going to play over Johnson and Lenoir and Thomas, depending on what they do with the defense, because D'Amico likes playing these press man, and Norman isn't much of a press man cover. If they bring in Sherman, I think that tells us a lot about the type, what they're going to start doing. Like you're talking about, more of the zone reads.
Mm-hmm.
But, Lenoir or Ambry Thomas, it's time for you guys to step up. And we know you have the ability to. It's about, are you going to have the consistency to be able to play? Unfortunately, last half of this game, it didn't look very good. But then again, I also think that has to do with the scheme of them playing soft and just, trying to bend, not break. And look, Goff made some good throws, and, they're, Swift made some good plays. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm just not as pessimistic on everything. I think this was more circumstance and it was week 1. You know what I mean? Like, this is the first time everybody's playing together. The fact that the offense looked as good as it did, the fact that we were able to pull out a win, I think all are good signs, and I think we're going to get better. So,
yeah, the thing is that they have to beat the Eagles next week, right? Like that. These are 2 games that they chalked up as wins, and let's hope also, because let's not forget that Mosley didn't play today, right? So if Mosley can come back, at least right away, things are not as dire as what they looked today. Today it looked bad because you had Ambry Thomas out there and you had Dante Johnson. Like, if that's what the starters are, I'm not feeling too good about it next week. But if Mosley's able to come back and then kick one of those guys to the bench, I feel a lot better going into that Eagles game. But if he doesn't play, I'm definitely extremely worried about how much of an impact this defense can have next week.
And, impact, I still think that they're going to make a big impact just because of the defensive line and the linebacking core, but definitely.
Greenlaw's hurt too, man. He's got that groin. So, again, if he's out, Verrett's out, Kinlaw's out, it's early, right? And I'm not saying that they can't get it done. They still have some really good pieces there. But that's a lot, man. That's a lot to be without in game 2 of the season. Another East Coast game. You know what I mean? I don't know.
And look, Eagles always play the 49ers tough.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a gimme, like, where everybody say, oh, this is an easy victory. No, it's not. The Eagles beat us last year. They are looking sharp this year. Their offense is much better. They have a really good defense that a lot of people overlook. They have a nasty defensive line as well. But look, I think that our offensive line can be good, hold up to the task. I think Jimmy's playing well. Spinick says, will we see Sermon next week with the Mostert injury? I'm not sure how long Mostert's going to be out, but unfortunately, Mostert's fragile. Like, he did two rushes for 20 yards, so he's averaging 10 yards per carry, but he can't stay healthy on the field, right? He's amazing when he's playing, but he just can't stay healthy. I gotta believe that they're gonna have to have Sermon there, and be Mitchell and Sermon back in the backfield. But yeah, as far as this defense, we're gonna go. I think we should move on